Are you familiar with the punishments doled out during World War II? What were the worst forms of punishment inflicted on soldiers and civilians during the war? During World War II, there were approximately 75 million fatalities, marking it as one of the deadliest battles in the annals of humankind. In addition to the enormous loss of life, the war was typified by an extensive catalogue of atrocities against the general populace and on the battlegrounds. Using punitive measures as a military strategy was among the most unforgiving aspects of this conflict. Throughout history, various methods have been employed to establish and maintain a sense of control, including implementing strict rules, enforcing fear amongst others, and carrying out punishments. From the severest, such as executing prisoners of war, to the less invasive act of incarcerating innocent civilians. Within the context of this video, we're poised to delve into the many heinous punishments dealt out during the harrowing years of World War II. This investigation into the darker aspects of history provides a stark reminder of the horrific human toll that warfare can exact upon humanity, further amplifying the crucial importance of constantly searching for peaceful and just solutions to conflicts. Part 1. The Holocaust. The systematic persecution and murder of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany during World War II is known as the Holocaust. Jews were picked up and brought to concentration camps between 1941 and 1945, where they were forced to live in horrible conditions and suffer cruel treatment like starvation, torture, and medical experimentation. The Holocaust was carried out under the leadership of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, who believed in the concept of racial purity and considered Jews to be a threat to the German nation. The Holocaust remains one of the most horrific and tragic events in human history, and it's estimated that around 2/3 of European Jews were killed during the genocide. Part 2. The Death March in Bataan. During World War II, the Japanese forces subjected American and Filipino prisoners of war through the terrible Bataan Death March. In April 1942, around 75,000 prisoners were forced to march over 60 miles in scorching heat, without food or water. Those who fell behind or tried to escape were shot or stabbed. The Bataan Death March has remained a poignant and tragic reminder of one of Japan's most egregious offenses during World War II. It's believed that the death toll of Allied troops who lost their lives during this horrific march reached a staggering 10,000 individuals. Even after all these years, this atrocity stands as a gut-wrenching testament to the excruciating physical and emotional pain suffered by those who were taken captive during the conflict. It also serves as an enduring symbol of the barbarity and inhumanity often associated with war. Part 3. The Nanking Rape. During the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Imperial Japanese Army punished the Chinese city of Nanking by performing the Rape of Nanking. After taking the city in December 1937, Japanese troops went on a 6-week killing spree, killing an estimated 300,000 Chinese soldiers and civilians. Thousands of women were raped during the massacre, and many were killed or severely injured. The Rape of Nanking is regarded as one of Japan's worst war crimes, and a devastating example of the horrific war crimes and the misery that innocent citizens faced. Part 4. The Atomic Bombings. During the closing stages of World War II, the United States punished Japan by dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Americans launched nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August 6th and 9th, 1945, killing an estimated 200,000 people and causing chaos. Even to this day, the bombings continue to be a topic of controversy. On one side of the spectrum, some believe that the bombings were an essential measure to end the war, while others consider them unjust and a violation of the rules of war. Irrespective of which opinion one holds, it can't be denied that the atomic bombings are a grim reminder of the severe outcomes of war and the significance of pursuing peaceful means of settling conflicts. The aftermath of the bombs is evidence on the disastrous impact they had and serves as a lesson on the devastating power of warfare that should not be taken lightly. Part 5. Japanese Americans' Internment. The government of the United States subjected Japanese Americans to internment during World War II as a punitive measure. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. government received intelligence that Japanese Americans were regarded as a security threat, developing a sense of apprehension toward them. President Franklin D. Roosevelt made a historic decision in 1942 by signing his signature on an executive order that empowered the government to conduct a mandatory roundup of Japanese Americans in America. Subsequently, numerous individuals of Japanese ancestry were confined and restricted to internment camps, which became their home indefinitely. Even though over 80,000 Japanese Americans were officially recognized as United States citizens, they were still rounded up during World War II and forced to abandon their homes and livelihoods in internment camps. These communities were often met with contempt and fear from their fellow Americans, who refused to differentiate between them and their country of ancestry. These so-called alien enemies became the target of strict regulations that limited their freedom of movement, communication, and even their ability to send and receive mail. These measures were justified under the guise of national security. Still, they served to deepen the rift between Japanese Americans and their fellow citizens and created lasting scars that would take decades to heal. An event in the history of the United States that is widely regarded as one of the most revolting episodes ever. It involved the incarceration of Japanese Americans, which was an act contradicting the principles of protecting citizens' rights and respecting their dignity as human beings. It was a matter that raised grave concerns about the state of civil liberties and human rights in the country. Part 6. The Lech Slaughter. Another horrifying punishment during World War II was the massacre at Lech, sometimes referred to as the Lech Slaughter. As punishment for the murder of high-ranking Nazi official Reinhard Heydrich, the Nazis stormed the Czech hamlet of Lech in June 1942, committing the Holocaust. The entire village of Lech was demolished, and its residents were either murdered or transferred to detention camps. Women and children were transferred to concentration camps where many died, while men and boys above 16 were put to death. The massacre at Lech was just one of many examples of the Nazis' brutal retaliation tactics. The Nazis were known for their indiscriminate violence against civilians, and the massacre at Lech was no exception. In addition to the massacre at Lech, the Nazis also committed numerous other atrocities against civilians during the war. One example of this was the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, which took place in April 1943. The district of Warsaw that the Nazis designated as the Warsaw Ghetto served as a confined area where Jews were locked up and forced to live in isolation from the rest of society. However, to avoid being transported to concentration camps, the Jewish inhabitants rebelled against their captors in April 1943. Their ultimate goal was to resist the transfer to the centers and fight to maintain their right to continue living in their ancestral homes. For several long weeks, the relentless skirmishes between the Nazis and the Jewish combatants continued amidst the alleys and streets of the besieged ghetto. With each passing day, the belligerents stood their ground with fierce determination, unleashing a barrage of firepower and hand-to-hand combat. Despite the Jewish freedom fighters' valiant efforts, the Nazis emerged victorious, quelling the uprising once and for all. Following this devastating defeat, the surviving Jewish inhabitants of the ghetto were unceremoniously rounded up and transported to concentration camps, where they would endure unimaginable horrors. A rare instance of Jewish resistance to the Nazis, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was a critical turning point in the history of the Holocaust. Many Jewish ghetto dwellers perished, making it a tragic tragedy as well. World War II had devastating consequences in what can be termed one of the darkest periods of human existence. The war, marked by widespread suffering and devastation, witnessed countless tragedies, from the unspeakable horrors of the Holocaust to the unfathomable destruction wrought by the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Never before in human history had such extreme measures been taken, leading to an unprecedented loss of lives and destruction of property. The events that unfolded during this tumultuous period left an indelible mark on history, and their impact continues to be felt today. The importance of observing the horribleness committed against humanity cannot be overstated, as it paves the way for a future that upholds human dignity and doesn't tolerate the use of such inhumane punishments. We must examine our past and learn from past events to achieve this significant goal. This process of reflection and analysis can lay the foundation for a brighter future for upcoming generations.